You wake up one morning, scroll through your phone, and see "Made in China" on almost everything you touch. Your charger, your headphones, maybe even the phone itself. Now, that's not exactly shocking, right? China's been the world's factory for decades. But here's what is shocking. China isn't just making our stuff anymore. They're buying our ports, funding our neighbors' infrastructure, and quietly becoming the go-to partner for countries that used to look to America first. So what happened? How did the United States, the country that basically invented global influence, start losing ground to China? And more importantly, should we actually be worried? Stick around, because what you're about to learn might completely change how you see the world. Okay, so when we talk about influence, we're not talking about Instagram followers or TikTok clout. We're talking about real power, the kind that shapes economies, politics, and even what your life looks like day to day. Think of global influence like being the most popular kid in school. Not because you're loud or flashy, but because everyone wants to sit with you at lunch. They value your opinion. They want to be on your team. They trust you. For decades, that kid was America. After World War II, the U.S. basically rebuilt half the world through something called the Marshall Plan. We gave money, resources, and know-how to Europe and Asia. In return, those countries became our allies, our trading partners, and our friends. But here's the thing about being popular. You have to keep earning it. And while America was busy fighting wars in the Middle East, dealing with financial crises, and arguing with itself, China was quietly doing homework, making friends, and building a completely different kind of empire. Let's break down exactly how they did it. All right, imagine you're a kid with a lemonade stand. You make great lemonade, but there's a problem. The road to your stand is bumpy, full of potholes, and honestly, kind of dangerous. So not many people come by. Now imagine a rich neighbor comes over and says, "Hey, I'll fix your road for free. I'll even build you a bridge so more people can get here easily." You'd probably say yes, right? That's basically what China's been doing with the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI for short. Starting in 2013, China began investing trillions of dollars into infrastructure projects across Asia, Africa, Europe, and even Latin America. We're talking about roads, railways, ports, power plants, 5G networks, you name it. Over 150 countries have signed up. Here's a real example. In Kenya, China built a massive railway connecting Nairobi to Mombasa. It cut travel time from 12 hours to about 4. For Kenyans, that's life-changing. For China, it's influence. Because here's the catch, and there's always a catch. When China builds your infrastructure, you often owe them money. A lot of money. And if you can't pay it back, well, China might just take control of that port or railway they built. Sri Lanka learned this the hard way when they handed over a strategic port to China on a 99-year lease because they couldn't repay their debt. So while America was spending trillions on military operations overseas, China was spending trillions building goodwill, infrastructure, and economic ties. One strategy makes you look like a policeman. The other makes you look like a generous friend. Guess which one wins more fans? Let's talk money. Because at the end of the day, influence isn't just about goodwill. It's about who controls the economy. Remember when Made in China was a joke? People laughed at cheap plastic toys that broke in 5 minutes. But those days are long gone. Today, China is the world's largest manufacturer. They produce everything from smartphones to solar panels to electric vehicle batteries. In fact, China makes about 28% of all global manufacturing output. The US? About 16%. But here's where it gets really interesting. China isn't just making cheap stuff anymore. They're making advanced stuff. High-tech electronics, AI systems, green energy technology. They've moved up the value chain. Think about your iPhone. Sure, it's designed in California. But where's it assembled? China. Where do most of the components come from? China. Apple depends on China, and so does almost every other tech company in the world. Now, let's flip to trade. China is the #1 trading partner for over 120 countries. The US? Around 80. That means more countries depend on China for their economic survival than depend on America. Here's a wild stat. China trades more with Africa than the US and Europe combined. They're not just buying resources, they're selling products, building factories, and creating jobs. And when you create jobs in someone else's country, they remember that. Meanwhile, America's approach has been more about telling countries what to do. Adopt democracy. Open your markets. Follow our rules. Not exactly the warmest sales pitch. China's pitch? We'll help you grow. No lectures. No regime change. Just business. For a lot of countries, especially developing ones, that's a pretty appealing offer. Okay, stay with me here because this part is super important and honestly, kind of mind-blowing. Right now, the US dollar is the world's reserve currency. That's a fancy way of saying most countries use dollars for international trade, even if they're not trading with America. Oil, priced in dollars. International loans, usually in dollars. This gives the US massive power. It's like owning the monopoly board while everyone else is just playing on it. If America doesn't like what you're doing, they can cut you off from the dollar system, and suddenly, you can't trade with most of the world. That's basically what sanctions are. But China's been chipping away at this dominance. They've been pushing countries to trade in yuan, China's currency, instead of dollars. And it's working. Russia and China now do most of their trade in rubles and yuan, not dollars. Saudi Arabia, one of America's oldest allies, recently started discussing oil sales in yuan. Brazil and China have agreed to trade directly in their own currencies. Why does this matter? Because every time a country stops using dollars, America loses a little bit of that monopoly board power. China's also created something called the CIPS, the Cross-Border Interbank Payment System. It's basically their version of SWIFT, which is the global messaging system banks use to transfer money. If more countries start using CIPS instead of SWIFT, the US loses even more financial leverage. Now, the dollar isn't going anywhere overnight. It's still king. But the kingdom's getting smaller, and China's building a rival empire right next door. Let's talk about the future, because whoever controls technology controls tomorrow. Here's a question. When you think of cutting-edge tech, do you think of America or China? Most people still say America, right? Silicon Valley. Apple, Google, Tesla. We invented the internet, for crying out loud. But here's the reality check. China is dominating in some of the most important technologies of the 21st century. 5G networks. China's Huawei was leading the race until the US basically banned them from Western markets. But in the rest of the world, Huawei's 5G infrastructure is everywhere. Artificial intelligence. China's investing more in AI than any other country. They've got facial recognition systems that make America's look like toys. Their AI startups are rivaling Silicon Valley. Electric vehicles? BYD, a Chinese company, just overtook Tesla as the world's largest EV seller. Chinese EVs are flooding markets in Southeast Asia, Europe, and South America. Green energy? China produces 80% of the world's solar panels. They control most of the supply chain for batteries. If the world's going green, it's going through China first. Here's the kicker. While America's been worried about TikTok dances and whether social media is rotting our brains, China's been building the physical and digital infrastructure of the future. They're not just competing with us. In some areas, they're already ahead. And countries notice. When you're choosing between outdated American tech with a side of political lectures or cutting-edge Chinese tech with no strings attached, the choice gets harder. Now, don't get me wrong. America still has the most powerful military in the world. It's not even close. We've got more aircraft carriers than everyone else combined. We've got bases in over 70 countries. Our defense budget is bigger than the next 10 countries combined. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Military power doesn't buy you love anymore. It buys you fear. And fear doesn't create lasting influence. China figured this out. They're not trying to outgun America. They're trying to outinvest America. While the US has troops stationed around the world, China's building their economic presence. They're not invading countries. They're buying stakes in them. Take Djibouti, a tiny country in Africa. It's strategically important because it sits right where the Red Sea meets the Indian Ocean. America has a military base there. China? They built their first overseas military base there too. But they also invested in ports, railways, and free trade zones. Who do you think the locals appreciate more? The foreign soldiers or the people creating jobs? Here's another angle. America's military interventions in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Libya cost trillions of dollars and left those regions, well, not exactly success stories. Meanwhile, China spent similar amounts of money building infrastructure in Asia and Africa, winning hearts and minds without firing a single shot. It's like the difference between being the tough guy everyone's scared of versus being the generous person everyone wants to work with. Both have power, but only one builds lasting friendships. Okay, let's talk about something softer but equally important: how the world sees you. America used to dominate soft power. Hollywood movies, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, blue jeans, rock and roll. American culture was everywhere. People around the world dreamed of the American lifestyle. They watched our movies, listened to our music, and wanted to live our way of life. That's soft power, and it's incredibly valuable. But something shifted. After decades of wars, financial crises, political dysfunction, and, let's be honest, some pretty ugly domestic issues being broadcast worldwide, the American dream started losing its shine. Meanwhile, China's been investing heavily in its own soft power. They've opened over 500 Confucius Institutes around the world, teaching Chinese language and culture. Chinese movies and TV shows are becoming more popular globally. TikTok, owned by a Chinese company, is one of the most influential platforms on Earth. China's also mastered something called vaccine diplomacy and mass diplomacy. During COVID-19, while America was hoarding supplies and fighting over toilet paper, China was sending masks, ventilators, and vaccines to countries in need. It didn't matter if those supplies were always perfect. What mattered was the gesture. Now, I'm not saying everyone suddenly loves China. They've got their own PR problems, especially around human rights issues. But perception is shifting, especially in developing countries. America used to be seen as the land of opportunity, freedom, and innovation. Now, a lot of countries see us as divided, declining, and honestly, kind of exhausting. China's message is simpler. We're focused on growth, stability, and prosperity. Want it? For many countries, that's starting to sound pretty good. Let's be real for a second. China's rise is impressive, but it's also partly because America made some, let's call them strategic errors. Error number 1, taking allies for granted. For years, America assumed our allies would just stick with us no matter what. We lectured them, sometimes bullied them, and expected loyalty without always offering much in return. China saw that gap and filled it with investment and partnership. Error number 2, focusing on military over economic tools. We spent trillions on wars that didn't really advance our interests, while China spent trillions on ports, railways, and trade deals that did advance theirs. Error number 3, underestimating China. For decades, Western leaders assumed China would liberalize as it got richer, that it would become more like us. Spoiler alert, it didn't. Instead, China took our playbook, improved it, and started competing on their own terms. Error number 4, ignoring developing countries. While America focused on Europe and other rich allies, China swooped into Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America with open arms and open wallets. Now those regions are tilting toward China. Error number 5, political dysfunction at home. It's hard to project strength abroad when your own country looks like a mess. Government shutdowns, bitter political fights, crumbling infrastructure. These things don't exactly inspire confidence. The truth is, America got comfortable. We thought our position was unshakable. We thought being the biggest military power was enough. China proved it's not. Alright, so you might be thinking, this is all fascinating, but how does this affect me? Great question. Let's get personal. Your job. If China dominates future industries like AI, green energy, and advanced manufacturing, those jobs won't be in America. They'll be in China or countries aligned with China. Your purchases, more of what you buy will come from China or Chinese-influenced supply chains. That can mean cheaper products, but also less choice and more dependence. Global stability. If America loses influence, we lose the ability to shape global rules. That could mean more authoritarian governments, fewer protections for human rights, and a world order that doesn't reflect Western values. Technology. If Chinese tech becomes the global standard, your data, your privacy, and your digital life might be governed by Chinese rules, not American ones. The economy. The dollar's dominance is what keeps America economically powerful. If that fades, inflation could rise, borrowing costs could increase, and your savings could lose value. So yeah, this isn't just some abstract geopolitical chess game. It's about your future, your kids' future, and what kind of world we're all going to live in. So here's the million-dollar question. Is it too late? Can America regain its influence? Or is China's rise inevitable? Honestly, it's complicated. America still has massive advantages. We've got the world's largest economy, the the most powerful military, the best universities, and a culture of innovation that's hard to beat. Silicon Valley didn't happen by accident. But to stay competitive, America needs to make some serious changes. Invest in infrastructure. China's building the future. America's roads and bridges are falling apart. We need to modernize, fast. Focus on alliances. Instead of going it alone, America needs to strengthen partnerships with Europe, Japan, India, and others. Together, democracies are still more powerful than China. Compete on economics, not just military. We need trade deals, investment initiatives, and economic partnerships that rival China's Belt and Road. Fix things at home. A divided, dysfunctional America can't lead the world. We need to get our house in order, politically, economically, and socially. Stay ahead in tech. If we lose the race in AI, quantum computing, and green energy, we lose the future. Period. The good news? None of this is impossible. America's done it before. After World War II, we rebuilt the world. After the Cold War, we emerged as the sole superpower. We know how to compete. We just need to remember how. So let's wrap this up. China isn't beating America because they're smarter or more innovative. They're winning because they had a plan, a long-term, strategic plan, and they stuck to it. While America was distracted by short-term crises, China was playing the long game. They invested in infrastructure, built economic ties, expanded their technological capabilities, and quietly positioned themselves as an alternative to American leadership. And the world noticed. Now, does that mean China's the new global superpower and America's finished? No, but it does mean we're in a new era, one where influence isn't automatic and dominance isn't guaranteed. The question isn't whether China's rising. They are. The question is, what's America going to do about it? Because here's the thing, the world still needs leadership. It needs countries that invest in others, that build rather than destroy, that inspire rather than intimidate. China's offering one vision of the future. America needs to offer a better one. And honestly, the outcome of this competition will shape your life, your career, and your world for decades to come. So yeah, it matters. A lot. What do you think? Is America's influence fading for good, or can we bounce back? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm genuinely curious what you think. And if you want me to dive deeper into any part of this, whether it's the Belt and Road Initiative, the currency wars, or what everyday people can do to prepare for this shift, let me know. I'll make it happen. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.